call the meeting to order, and I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Ms. Hodges? Absent. Mr. Mills?
Here.
Mr. Oden?
Here.
Ms. Roller-Spargin? Here. Mr. Kleindienst?
Here. Mr. Reddy, would you explain Dana's absence tonight, sir?
Yes, Ms. Hodges called and said that she is home recovering. She's getting better
There you
at
go.
home, and
Thank
she's
you.
watching on TV.
Thank you. Good evening, Dana. If you'll all please rise for the flag salute. Jeannie, if you'll lead us in pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to now ask for a moment of silence. Thank you. We have no presentation scheduled for tonight's meeting. I'll have to turn to our city clerk for a report on the posting of tonight's agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the agenda you have before you was posted in accordance with council procedures last Friday, April the 25th. Tonight, the city manager is withdrawing item number 2 on your agenda. In addition, the council did receive in those yellow folders in front of them a revised minute order for item number 3.
Do we want to add the subcommittee for the school district on the backside? Arisen subsequent to the posting agenda? Why don't you ask him if that's a possibility? All right, the Housing Authority, the Industrial Development Authority, the Financing Authority, and the Community Redevelopment Agency have no business scheduled tonight. We can now turn to public comments. Anyone wishing to address the council on matters within the jurisdiction, please come forward at this time. You'll have 3 minutes, and there's a clock behind me that counts down from 3. And we welcome any and all comments.
We're going to stand because it's a student microphone.
He's got a mic right there?
Yes.
Isn't that his mic right there? No, I mean that.
Close to her, man. I'm afraid.
That wireless mic, wouldn't that work for him?
Well, yes, it would. But can you rewind the clock, please?
I haven't started yet.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and staff. My name's Linda Fort, Palm Springs Bureau of Tourism. First of all, we want to thank you for the support y'all always give us. As you know, one of the hotels came to us and said, we need an event over Mother's Day weekend because historically it's a very slow weekend. A Weekend with the King was born with that idea. We are going to have approximately 40 Elvis tribute artists who will be competing over a 3-day period. We have members of the Memphis Mafia coming in, Charlie Hodge, Sonny West, Joe Espirito, a huge, huge collection of Elvis's inner circle. Yeah, him too. And it's a Texas thing. I never can say his name. Anyway, we wanted to invite y'all to come out and participate. It will be held at the Palm Springs Convention Center. You can call our office for information, and I'd like to just give you a quick sample of what to expect for the weekend.
I will now extend the next speaker 3 minutes.
Oh, I got 3 minutes. Now, wait a minute. I'm just a part-time celebrity.
Why don't you give your name to us, sir? Is it
Ladies
Elvis?
and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to see it. My name is not Elvis. I'm not the best Elvis impersonator in the world, but I am here to help promote A Weekend with the King here in Las Vegas, which I think is Las Vegas. Yeah, see? Okay, take 2. No, here in Palm Springs, which is a great place for him because he had 2 houses here. One he owned, one he rented, and or leased, and his stars down there, as you all know. And we're going to have a whole bunch of Elvises in here, and hopefully a whole bunch of Elvis fans come in to see it, and that's what we all want. And if you don't come down Mother's Day weekend, then you're going to miss it because it's now or never, come hold me tight, kiss me, my darling, be mine tonight. She's married, too. Tomorrow will be too late. It's now or never.
On cue, I'll have you know.
My love won't wait. I'll give you your $5 later, okay?
All right.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all come down, and really I think it's a fantastic event, and we've got a lot of people coming in. This is the largest gathering of Elvis's inner circle since he died outside of Memphis. Wow. They do come in to Memphis for Tribute Week, but here in Palm Springs,
Thank you.
Doesn't start with L. Viva Palm Springs! This is going to be a huge event for them themselves, much less for the fans. You know, so we hope that we bring in a whole lot of fans for that, because it is pretty historic. It really is in the Elvis world.
In the Elvis Road.
So thank you all very much.
Now, what amazed me was you got one of Ron's jackets. I don't know why you got that. You got Chris's sideburns. you got
J.C.
Jean's
Penney.
glasses, and you got my voice.
J.C. Penney. I told you I'd loan you some sideburns. Thank you very much.
Thank you
y'all.
both very much. All right, anyone else wishing to address the council? Elvis is in the house, but I think he's about ready to leave the building. You can just say Rose Subcommittee posting. Ask David. Let me see if that light is on. Push that button that says push. Is the green light on?
Yes, now it
there
is.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My name's Lanny Swerdlow. As I understand it, today you're going to be deciding whether you're going to decide the issue of whether you're going to form a medical marijuana task force, as was discussed at the city council meeting about a month ago when Dana Hodge had put it on the agenda. I want to point out that the reason this was brought up was because up until recently, as far as I know, there had been no arrests anywhere in the Coachella Valley of medical marijuana patients for possessing their medicine until this year, when 2 arrests have been effected in Palm Springs. The problem is that if you ask a police officer, how do you recognize a medical marijuana patient, they don't know. When you ask a police officer how much marijuana may a medical patient possess and cultivate under state law, they don't know, and yet they're arresting people for this. And we need to develop guidelines for the Palm Springs Police Department, so when they come upon a medical marijuana patient and in the presence of their medicine, would know whether they have more than is needed for their particular condition. The Riverside County DA's office, the only information they have put out in regards to it was put out by Deputy Prosecutor Cynthia Brewer, that told the Riverside Press Enterprise that the law is clear, that they are allowed to have as much medicines as necessary for their medical condition. A number of what I passed out to you was a proposal that I have drafted for the creation of a medical marijuana task force. I have also passed out to you the guidelines that the city of Goleta, a city of about the same size as Palm Springs, is currently considering establishing within their city, and also the guidelines that Humboldt County has established for medical marijuana patients. I gave you at the other city council meeting all the list of most of the guidelines throughout this county, city and counties of California. I just want to remind you, a while ago, you probably remember I came before the council about asset forfeiture and Inca. And I was constantly reminded by everybody that asset forfeiture is the law, and all we are doing is enforcing the law. And I would like to remind everyone that Proposition 215 is the law. And what I am asking the City Council of Palm Springs to do is to enforce that law by giving guidelines to the Palm Springs Police Department on how to recognize a medical marijuana patient and the amount of marijuana they may possess and cultivate as provided under state law. It's only right. It is the law, and you are here to enforce the law and to give guidance to the Palm Springs Police Department. I hope that tonight, I don't know when you're going to be doing this because I really don't understand your procedure, but I would like to see you vote to consider the creation of a Palm Springs medical marijuana task force. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to address the council? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Joy Meredith. I'm president of Main Street, the Merchants Association of Downtown Palm Springs in beautiful downtown. I'm here tonight just really briefly to tell you how much Main Street and the Merchants of Downtown support the proposal that Jerry Ogburn's going to be bringing to you this evening. You know, we come into a whole new era in downtown Palm Springs, and this is something you won't really hear me say publicly too often. But we might be in a little bit of trouble. We have competition now from more local areas, and it's not just, you know, some kind of amateurish deal anymore. You know, we have some serious competition coming from Down Valley, and we really feel that the only way that we're going to be able to be helped is through some advertising, whether it be cooperatively or elsewise. But we've really come down to this being the true answer, is that we are not marketing downtown properly. And the fact is that this downtown is the lifeblood of this town. Palm Canyon Drive is historic, it's famous, it is a legend, which is part of the new program, as you see up there on the wall. It's an attraction like anything else. And we need to be recognized down there. You know, we're really losing the market share quickly now, because what's happened is that these other venues, whose names I won't mention nor their cities, are just really taking some business away from us. And we need to get a grasp on it, and we need to do it quickly. And we are coming to you because we do feel that we're an important part of the city. And I realize that there are other shopping areas in the city as well. But they're not downtown, and they're not Palm Canyon Drive. They're shopping centers, and that's a little bit different. So tonight, I hope that you really consider what Jerry's going to be talking to you about tonight. You know, I don't want to take any of that away from him, because he does a good job at it. But please consider it, because I'm here tonight, unfortunately, to tell you we really do need help this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joy. Anyone else wishing to address the council? Very good. Seeing no one, we'll close public comments. There is no consent agenda tonight. There are no public hearings. We'll turn to council comments, announcements, or interagency reports. Council? Doesn't matter. You can do them now if you'd like.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Odom.
On Saturday morning, I had the opportunity to welcome over 800 members of the Southwest Dance Association to the city of Palm Springs. What's interesting about this group is that they've been coming to our community for 14 years, and this was the first time that I became aware of them. They actually had young people, well, people from 7 years old through senior plus. It was a most interesting group. I tell you, they were playing music and dancing, and as you looked out over that sea of young people, it's just incredible the effect of dance and music. All different races, ages, colors, but the harmony that you felt in that room and the energy and the excitement was truly exceptional. They are looking forward to joining us again next year. On Saturday evening, I had the opportunity to represent the city at the second annual Champions for Justice, which is a program by Riverside County. And we had several people, we had one member from our community who was recognized, and that was Dr. Wayne McKinney. And in addition to Dr. Wayne McKinney, I also sat for several years on the Coachella Valley Housing Coalition Board, and John Mealy was also recognized for his work in building housing, in particular for people living with AIDS, but also all the special needs housing, from farm worker housing to senior housing to low-income and self-help housing. But I also had the opportunity to see another person who received an award, Reverend Jesse L. Wilson. He and I were undergraduate classmates, and he received a special recognition for his work in the city of Riverside right after the Taisha Miller shooting. He was able to bring the ministerial association together and to prevent a lot of people from taking a very hostile approach to the issues that took place in that city. On Sunday, I attended the Wine and Cheese and All That Jazz program by the Mizell Center at Palapas. And I tell you, I spent a lot of money because there was this man and his wife who kept bidding against me, and I won't mention your name, Chris and Dawn. But they had some fabulous art pieces and vacations, and it was just a great event. And on last evening, I attended Yom HaShoah, the Holocaust Memorial Service in Palm Desert, commemorating the 60th anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Both of the local rabbis spoke. Rabbi Paul Citrin, spiritual leader of Temple Sinai, and Rabbi Jordan Offsire from Temple Isaiah. It was an excellent, excellent program. Just like to say also to Dr. Bierfrund, who is retiring. He's been a physician in this community for many, many years. Congratulations on your retirement. I'm sure there are a lot of people from the city and the surrounding areas who thank you for your many years of service. And we also received a letter this week, which I thought was fairly exceptional, and it was from the city of Indian Wells. And it was regarding one of our employees, Richard Strickland, and commending him for the excellent job that he has done in securing more airlines into the city of Palm Springs. I think it's one thing when we receive the regular letters from people from the community, but when another city takes an opportunity to say, you have someone in your employ who has done an exceptional job that benefits everyone in this Coachella Valley, I think is worthy of note.
Thank you, Mr. Roden.
And I have one more thing.
Yes, sir.
We received a letter from Univision regarding doing a program in conjunction with the city of Palm Springs, and I was just wondering what has happened with that. It's the Spanish station?
Right, that sounds familiar. Councilman, if I could look into that and get an update to you. I'm just trying to remember actually what staff was working on that. I'll get a report to you tomorrow.
And on the rescheduling of the study session for the Walk of Stars, there was a request for a reschedule, and I'm wondering if we took care of that as well.
It's on the agenda, isn't it?
Yes, he had actually made a request for a future date, and that will be discussed tonight under the docket reviews. Thank you.
Okay. Other comments or questions? I attended yesterday. Was it yesterday morning? You had an uptown, downtown merchants meeting at the Hyatt for about 2 hours. David and staff met with those merchants and business owners from the downtown and uptown area to basically hear their concerns and their grievances and their suggestions for improving both areas. David, once again, handled it masterfully. It's not always easy to sit in a room full of people that have concerns. They are sometimes emotional, and sometimes debate gets a lot out of hand, but David was very good at keeping people calm, and they captured all of those notes, and I think they'll probably be reported out to us, and we'll get a copy of those concerns. On Saturday night, I was fortunate enough to attend the AIDS Assistance Program, and this year's was held at O'Donnell, as it is every year. And the awards were given out to a number of community leaders, one of which was Barry Manilow, and his way of saying thank you was to put on a concert. So he paid for all the cost of the stage, the lighting, the musicians, the whole production, and then he got up and sang, and Suzanne Summers suddenly appeared and joined him in a couple of songs. So it was kind of a fun evening, to say the least. As we turned to each other, just said some of the local Palm Springs kind of talent, the local people getting out, having some fun. Extraordinary evening. Tomorrow is the National Day of Prayer. It was been notified of, I'm sure everyone saw it on TV, but if you have any involvement in that tomorrow, please be aware of it. Sunday is the Israeli Independence Day celebration. It is celebrating the birth of the State of Israel, and I will be joining the Jewish community here, just down the street on El Cielo, 10:30 in the morning. If you have any opportunity to come by, it's usually a fun, festive kind of celebration. Song and food and so on and so forth. So if you're in the area, please stop by. On Saturday, the 3rd, the Air Museum is going to receive another aircraft. It is the last of the A4s, which is a military aircraft, which will be retiring. It'll do sort of a flyover and a last round and then land at about noon on Saturday and then be retired to part of the Air Museum's ongoing and growing repertoire of aircraft. So that's kind of an interesting piece. And on the issue of aviation, yesterday I was invited to join a meeting of Delta representatives that were here in Palm Springs. We celebrated the end of the first year of service from the direct flight that, of course, now occurs between here and Atlanta. They have given us also additional service to Salt Lake. They are very pleased with the numbers and are interested in bringing the service back next year 1 month earlier because they believe they can provide service and capture business by going 1 month earlier. So again, Mr. Odin commented on some of the work being done. Obviously, it's shared by at least Delta, seeing some great work. PM10 has been an issue in Palm Springs, if not the Coachella Valley, for a while. A number of issues have been attempted and somewhat resolved. We did get a report recently from the Coachella Valley Association of Government that the Coachella Valley State Improvement Plan has been approved, and it basically says that they have a plan in place that EPA will accept and extend the deadline till 2006. I had made mention of a program that was worked up at the MSRC committee, which is headed in Diamond Bar under the work of the Air Quality Management District, and last year managed to construct a program to allow $1 million to be used for grant funds out here, and some local matches were brought together. And I'm pleased to report that because of that program, we did meet the program for the state. We did leverage the $1 million into over $7.5 million of programs to mitigate and deal with PM10. So that was a success story we all have to share. And then Sunday night, if you're not aware of it, Linda Fort was here. I'm surprised you didn't bring it up, but it is the annual Best of the Best galas held again in my backyard, as it does every year. And we will be honoring those frontline personnel in the hospitality industry who have contributed greatly to the success of hospitality in Palm Springs. So if you're in the area and you see some noise in my backyard, that's what it is. This year, this year my neighbors, I'm told, have been notified, and some will be attending as guests of the Tourism Bureau. So things move forward in Palm Springs. Okay? Anything else? Any other council comments? Otherwise, let's turn to our legislative calendar. There are 4 items. Item 1 is the Visitor Center Architectural Services for the 2002-2003 fiscal year budget. It is an amendment. I'll turn to Mr. Reddy for his staff's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, I would ask Al Smoot, our Assistant City Manager and Executive Director of Airports, and John Raymond to come forward. They are going to give you the report. This is the architectural services for the Visitor Center. They have a complete breakdown of the costs, and I would ask them to explain that to council now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Reddy. Mr. Mayor, members of council. Following your meeting last week, the city manager asked me to get involved with this project the same way I was involved with the parking structure, and that is not to take over the project, but to do the construction part of it while JR continues to do the property organization and working with our tenants and everybody else to bring things along while I and Mike Fontana work through the construction. So we're here tonight to give you an update on where we are and ask for some action. First action being the approval of an architectural agreement with O'Donnell and Escalante not to exceed $64,000 for the work that is to be accomplished out there. And probably to properly explain this, I need to go to my high-tech flip chart.
High-tech flip chart it shall be. It's behind, is this it here? No? No, that's the convention center.
That's a different.
That's the later flip chart, yeah. Troy, maybe you can pull that one chair out of the way. It kind of blocks the bottom. Thank you.
What I've tried to do is do a comparison from last week to this week as far as what has occurred and how we're trying to get the project moving and paring it down at the same time. This column is where we were at last week. This column is where we're proposing to be at this week. And you can see the differences between the architectural contract. This is Mike Fontana's contract, which is also on the docket tonight for action. Some additional dollars for some construction staking. And then you can see each of the categories of work: the restrooms, the site improvements, which include the parking lot, the landscaping, security at the site in the form of some type of cameras, and the interior improvements. can see a large differential in the dollars that have been allocated there at this point. We are trying to do this project for around $500,000 if at all possible, and so we're shooting towards that. We end up with a total of $412,000 versus $736,000, so there is a substantial reduction in what we're going to be doing out there, and we're carrying $39,000 for a contingency. We got close to $500,000. We're also going to propose that since a good portion of the parking lot and some of the demolition work are going to be involved with reclaimed materials, that we're going to use some recycling funds to bring close to $70,000 into this project to help it out also. Just to let you know some of the major differences between last week and this week, there will be no street improvements in the project at this point. We were talking about doing some street improvements up around Tramway Road past the parking structure. So at this point, it will be the driveways paved in with asphalt and just dying out into the desert frontage that's there. The landscaping on the path and the entryway signage, that will not be as part of this project at this point. We'll do that separately. And JR is working with DWA as a possibility of providing some of the plant materials and other things for us, and they're looking at that so it could be completed. There'll be minimal landscaping on the existing site, probably some planting along the front of that wall once it gets cut down, and some trees in the parking lot, and beyond that we'll have to do that in a future phase. There'll be, we're looking at the parking lot itself. What is laid out on that particular plan over there is pretty expansive as far as the driveways and the other things. We're going to cut that back to save some dollars. And also, one of the major things that Mike and I noticed when we were on the site yesterday is there's about 4.5 feet of fill in that area where that parking lot was to go. And we don't have the dollars to take that fill out, so we're going to have to design over the top of it and make it work. And I think we can do that. But the original plan called for 4 feet of rock and debris to be taken out of there, so we'll have to compact over it and bring it in place. And then on the interior, we're also going to have to pare down some of the amount of cabinetry and things that we're going to go on the inside, possibly reduce the quality a little bit in order to get it within the budget. So that's the difference between the two.
Okay, council comments? I just want to send this your way. I had indicated in some of the earlier meetings the interest that the Desert Museum has in joining us. This is a letter that Janice Lyle dropped off today in the office, indicating their desire, obviously, to remain there in the racks, but they also have a collection of photographs that are significant to the architectural heritage of our community and would be willing to put those on loan. So that, again, we had discussed this. There's a letter from her. Perhaps you can coordinate that in the final design or otherwise. Some of my comments are just as follows. When you look at last week's column, as Al calls it, and this week's columns, you see a significant savings, somewhere around $400,000. And we also have seen a tremendous amount of effort put forward to get there. And I will not take it away from staff, but I will give some credit where credit is due. Each member of council offers some degree of expertise, some experience, some insight that helps guide other members of us at times in difficult and confusing matters. This particular project has been one that has been guided, if you will, by one of us, and I have to give that credit to Mr. Mills. He is, of course, a practicing professional in the profession of architecture and understands this better than I think any of us. In fact, I know he understands it better than we do. His scrutiny of the numbers since this project was first represented has represented now in a savings of almost $400,000. It is a better project. It is a better design project and program. It should be noted that Mr. Mills also negotiated, because of his relationship with certain members of our community, the land to be used for the parking structure at no cost to the city, provided us, quote-unquote, as much land as necessary to ensure the success of the project, was the sort of parenthetical reference I think that the owner of the land had said. Mr. Mills has also worked in conjunction with the Desert Water Agency in seeing some of the reductions in landscape. He thought it might be appropriate that maybe the Desert Water Agency could bring some of the indigenous planting in. Made a call, spoke with members of the board. They were elated that they were invited and ecstatic to participate and willing to pay a portion, and he can give better definition than perhaps I can. His savings are represented here. They are represented in the cost of our city's representative of $5,000 savings. And item 2 has been withdrawn, which last week I think was $136,000. So you start adding up how much was saved and how much better this project is. I just want to make sure that the community understands that for the most part, the council kind of watched Mr. Mills do his thing. And he did an extraordinary job. And we expect the same results on all future projects, Mr. Mill. So if you don't mind trying to save us that same percentage, we'd appreciate it. So hats off to you, sir, and I look forward to council's comments, but I wanted to make sure that we did give you the respectful thanks that this community has for your efforts.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I appreciate the comments, and I'm glad I'm not an accountant.
Solve the budget.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could say that in city manager schools across the country, there's now the Chris Mills, the Councilman Mills test that's added to all curriculum. And it will be very helpful.
Thank you. I think what we have here now is something that works extremely well. The mayor's comments on the water agency, they still have to act on that as a board, but hopefully that will work out, and that I think would be a partnership that would work extremely well, and hopefully their board agrees. So I would like to move the resolution, both resolutions. Do we do them separately or together?
Do them together, I believe.
Second.
Motion for approval by Mr. Mills and a second by Ms. Reller Spurgeon. Any other comments or questions? Ask for a roll call, please.
Mr. Mills?
Aye.
Mr. Oden?
Aye.
Ms. Rose Spurgeon?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor?
Aye, 4-0. It's unanimous. Again, Mr. Mills, thank you for your effort. Item 2 has been withdrawn. Item 3 is a Visitor Center City Representative Service Contract. Again, a 2002-2003 fiscal year budget amendment. Mr. Reddy?
And again, I would ask the two gentlemen to give you the report. I would note that the item, there's a change on this. The item that you have in your book is 40,000. There is a reduction that the new resolution is 35,000. That is a reduction from what you have in your book.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Reddy.
with that, Mr. Smoot.
If I may, inside your yellow materials at your desk has the new minute order inside of it, so the updated $35 million. Thank you. Mr. Smoot?
1,000.
What did I say?
Million.
Well, I'm trying to solve some problems that are bigger than I can handle right now. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor,
I actually said $1 million, huh?
You did.
What's on my mind? Mr. Smoot?
yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, this particular item is a follow-on item, which is the contract with Mr. Fontana to do city representative services as he is currently doing on the convention center and as he previously did on the parking structure. And the contract is for not to exceed $35,000 on an hourly rate. And besides that change that's there, also need to note that there is a budget resolution in there that says $40,000. Just imagine it really says $35,000, and we'll get a corrected copy to the city clerk.
I think we have that. 35
No,
is in the...
there's actually a budget resolution also that goes with
Oh,
that.
there's a... All right, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Okay. Can we amend the resolution ourselves, make a reference to it now? Okay, council, you've got obviously a new minute order amended to 35,000, and you have a resolution which you can correct at 35 from 40. And we'll entertain any comments, questions, or action of the council.
So move.
Second.
Motion for approval by Ms. Reller Spurgeon and a second by Mr. Mills. Any additional comments? Seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Mr. Mills?
Aye.
Mr. Oden?
Aye.
Ms. Rose Spurgeon?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor?
Aye. It is 4-0 deemed unanimous. Mr. Reddy, do we have any additional legislative items at this time?
There are none, sir.
Are there any added starters?
There are none.
Under reports and requests, council, we have one before us. It is a city council subcommittee appointment for the wastewater treatment plant. 2 members. I believe Mr. Oden and I have considered the appointment if the council will accept that.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Reller Spurgeon and second by Mr. Mills.
You notice we're not on it. That's
Yeah.
Pardon me. Could you do that motion again? I'm sorry.
A motion by Ms. Reller Spurgeon and a second by Mr. Mills to appoint myself and Mr. Oden to serve on the subcommittee representing the council on wastewater treatment plant issues.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Pleasure to serve with you, Mr. Oden. We'll turn to public reports and requests. Are there any staff reports or requests?
There are none.
All right, Madam Clerk, please watch as I adjourn this for our next regularly scheduled meeting will be on May 7th, and our next study session will be on May 14th. Both are at 7 p.m., and both will be preceded by a closed session at 5:30. We will now turn to our study session agenda. on our study session. We will then turn to our city attorney for a closed session report, please.
Yes, the council needs to meet in closed session. On the closed session agenda, real property negotiations for the agency involving the Plaza Theater. We gave a status report, no action was taken. For the city, we had real property negotiations with Desert Water Agency and also with the school district concerning property at the airport, the school operations yard. We gave a status report on each of those projects, no action was taken. We did not discuss any of the litigation matters listed. We did discuss employee labor negotiations with the bargaining units. Again, we gave a status report, no action was taken.
Thank you, Mr. Alshire. We'll turn to public comments. Anyone wishing to address the council on matters within the jurisdiction, please do so at this time. Very good, seeing none. Council comments, additional questions or reports? Thank you. I would like one request, I think, here. In dealing with the budget issue, I would like to have the city staff look into the Quimby Act for the purposes of generating fees for new homes construction, for the purposes of maintaining the level of our parks and recreational facilities. And if we could look at that, and even if it looks viable to staff to bring in an urgency ordinance for immediate action. We have a lot of homes being built, and my concern is that every home built that is not assessed would in fact be a reduction in our ability to have funds to enhance our parks. So I ask that that be reviewed by the staff and brought forward. Okay, and then any other measures you might have. I know we got some fee structure issues came out of last week's session. If you have any other recommendations for increasing fees or modifying the way in which we generate revenue, I'd greatly appreciate that opportunity. And again, I'd like to turn that based on your work in the planning department last week. Based on 218, you can charge the fee based on the work performed. I'd like to know what measures we can actually put in place as quickly as possible to start generating revenue for the city. Okay? Any other council comments, questions, or reports? Otherwise, we'll turn to our city manager for his comments and follow up on any requests. Mr. Reddy?
Mr. Mayor, I'm ready to go into the topics this evening, sir.
Thank you. Our City Council study session topics, there are 3 tonight. Our first one is an update on the Convention Center Phase 2 expansion. Mr. Reddy?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I would invite Al Smoot, who's in charge of this project, and actually Jim Dunn, our director of the Convention Center. What we have for you this evening is we have some firm numbers for you this evening on the Convention Center expansion. We have been working very hard, and we've had the subcommittee of council involved in this as well. We have some numbers to lay out for you this evening, and our specific question for you this evening is some direction on if you're in agreement with these numbers and moving forward, because I believe we're ready to get this project underway and to the actual final stages of the drawings. And with that, I give you Mr. Smoot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. Mr. Mayor, members of council, what we're going to try to do tonight between Jim and myself is walk you through the project update as far as the design and the schematic design cost estimate and the value engineering exercise that we went through a week and a half ago. Jim's going to talk a little bit about his marketing program, and then we have a couple of questions about booking the convention center versus the construction schedule during what we're calling blackout periods for the construction. I have sent around to you a colorful. You didn't get one, Jim?
Okay.
Start with green. And I have these low check charts again for you.
Let me guess, it's behind me. It's one behind me, isn't it?
I got comfortable. I wanted to spend a couple of minutes just to talk through where we are with the dollars that are available. This is basically what you have seen before, but I wanted to remind everybody of it one more time. If we start at the top, we're looking at the revenues that we anticipate annually and the bond proceeds of $38 million. Take away the costs, the reserves, the capitalized interest, and so on, you end up with about $31 million. Take some design savings, and plus the TOT collections between now and 0506, less the net debt service in 0506, and you end up with total funding of 37.8. Take away the first phase, and that includes the increased cost for the first phase that you approved a few weeks ago. Take away the second phase soft costs, which also includes the construction management in that number, and take away $1 million of pre-opening marketing. You end up with $27 million and change. Then take away the FF&E allotment of $400,000, the 500 spaces of parking on the north of Amato, and our $2 million contingency, and lo and behold, you have $24.2 million for actual construction of the building. So that's what we started with. Now, since you have last seen this project, we have finished the schematic design, and the schematic design cost estimate has come in, and I can share that number with you. This schematic design assumes that the Mesquite corridor, and the Mesquite corridor is right in this location. It's currently the open air area now in front of the building. It assumes that that remains open. It assumes...
Open as in exposed?
As exposed. It assumes that the kitchen shell does not exist, and it assumes that there's no lighting upgrade inside of the exhibit hall itself. Now, when you take those assumptions and you do the cost estimating, you come up with a total construction cost estimate of about $26 million and change, $900,000 in general conditions, and we're carrying a design contingency that's different than the construction contingency inside of that number right now because of the point where we are in the project. That will continue to reduce as we get more defined. If you remember last time, that was about $2.5 million in the last estimate you saw, so it's gone down almost $1 million. We end with a total schematic design estimate of $28 million. And do a little math with the money that's behind you, and you discover we're about $4.5 million short of balancing the budget. Now, the design subcommittee met about 10 days ago with that and started a process of value engineering. I mean, some of it had been going on with the designers prior to that. And so we went through a long program, several hours, to find a way to bring the project within budget and still not cut it to the point that it killed Jim's program for what he needs in the building. So if we switch directions here. For this value engineering exercise, we brought Turner Construction in and all their estimators. We had the architects there, we had our subcommittee there, we had representatives from the convention center there, and we sat around a table and looked at the building and looked at things. And before we got into the building, we talked about a couple of ways of saving some dollars in this project. The first being a pre-purchase of the major equipment. In this particular building, there'll be about $2.3 million in large pieces of equipment and large commodities of items such as carpet that can be purchased direct from the factory if you work through an agency in order to do that. And normally you can save anywhere from 10 to 15% on those purchases, and you assign the equipment to the contractor. And so we can purchase direct and pull about $250,000 in savings out of the process of doing that. Secondly, as you recall, we have $1 million we're carrying in that budget for pre-marketing or pre-opening marketing. $500,000 of that does not happen until well into the construction project. We'll be way into the process. I'll yell a little louder. Now maybe it is. Hello. The boss says it's fine. In any event, since that marketing will take place well past or well into the construction process, what we want to do is we want to delay that allocating that money until such time as we're far enough into the project that we know we've got some of that $2 million in construction contingency left over to try to allocate to it. So rather than kill the project now because we want to spend $1 million on marketing that we'll never get to do. We said, let's try to leverage those dollars out, and hopefully we'll be successful enough to have some of them left when we get to that point. Now, the other areas that we talked about reducing the east area registration. And if we look at the drawings, this was the drawing that you saw last time. This represents our design changes. This is the east area registration and pre-function that was in the building. That is not part of the original design parameters that were there. It was put into the project because of the added flexibility of having a large registration area on both sides of the convention center, as well as pre-function. So the first thing we looked at was reducing that east area registration area, and you can see the size of it here. We basically cut back to the front of the existing building and then have pre-function over here. And that saves us somewhere around $1.7 million in dollars, and we're still able to function and do everything that we need to as far as the program goes. The next item had to do with a pure value engineering exercise of looking at the fascia material. They'd called out a very expensive Alucobond product across there, and there are numerous other products that can do the work, look just as fine, and save us about $335,000. On the big columns that are all the way around the building in locations that have rock on the outside of them, they were originally designed with Dura-Rock on the inside of them. That's a material that wraps the column before you put the rock on it to weatherproof it. Since these are outside of the building, there's no reason to do that, so we've removed the Dura-Rock and saved $280,000. The next thing was to look at the columns, and these columns are the ones that go around the building on both sides. And what they did was they reduced the number of those columns by a few, and they reduced the overall footprint. And if you look at this column here versus that column there, it is smaller. You get the same kind of benefit from it. Still a stone-covered column, but it's 20% less stone. That's worth almost $500,000. The next thing was the west side. We have a very large high ceiling on the west side that flows from the inside of the building to the outside of the building and allows for a view to the mountains. The material that we had specified there was a metal panel system, and there are other systems that can do the work just as well and save some money, so we had $160,000 there. Then on the flex space, that was this large space up here, we looked at a variety of designs. The design that was in the schematic design showed 9 rooms and required 2 sets of double corridors. Air wall and everything related to air wall costs about $1,300 a foot. So when you start taking out some of those air walls, you save a lot of money in a hurry. This proposal is to reduce it to where there are 6 rooms, basically in a configuration similar to this. And those air walls can be put in or they can be taken out. That overall space is just under 19,000 square feet, and it can be used for a ballroom of that size, or it can be used as meeting rooms, or this location can be added to the main hall to get us 100,000 square feet of exhibit space. So it's still a flexible space. It still has those nasty columns in there. We still have not figured out how to get them out. We know that it's at least $600,000 to do that. We're continuing to evaluate it, but at this point, we didn't think it was too smart to leave or try to take those out when we were whacking several other things. Then if we do some other adjustments to fees and contingencies and other things that are all tied to reducing, we end up reducing about $4.6 million out of the project. And we still end up, and you can ask Jim this question, but we still end up with meeting the minimums that we started out to meet. It's just a little bit different than we had begun hoping to do. The other thing that we'd like to share is this does not account for any expectation that there may be extra dollars coming in from anything related to a TOT increase. At this point, we are attempting to design this project with that as the baseline, with some alternates in the bidding process which would get a bid for that kitchen area, would get bids for upgrading the lighting, would possibly get bids for the Mesquite corridor being covered, but the design on uncovering that is moving along to where we have kind of a really neat solution to make that work and still keep it partially outside. And basically build in several other things. We're also evaluating other things that we hadn't had time to get costs for yet. A lot of those exterior columns were also designed to carry the lateral load of the building. They had 12 of them, and those were humongous structural members. Through the schematic design, we've now got that down to 6 to 8 of them, so we've reduced several of them. We don't have that cost savings in yet. We also have been able to, every one of those that carried the lateral load, we're going to have a huge concrete core on the inside of them poured in place. Very expensive. We've now figured out a way to get that to where it's a steel truss instead. We don't have those costs in here. We've also found that we had over-designed for air conditioning, and so we've got extra dollars in there on air conditioning equipment, and we don't know what that is yet. All of those combined are probably $300,000 to $600,000. Between that, our design contingency, and our continued effort to really work hard on the design, I think we're going to bring you a project that will look very nice. We'll meet Jim's requirements, and we'll get it done within the budget. If by some means there is additional dollars in the future, we will be in a position to clip parts of the project on to expend those dollars if it's the council's desire to upgrade what we're doing. If that money does not come forward, we don't have to abandon the project or redesign it or whatever else. We just continue through as we're going now. We have gone from the schematic design phase now, and we're in the middle of the design development documents, and that's moving quickly in order to keep our time schedule. We're feeling very good about it. I want to pass out from Doug Evans a report on today's Planning Commission action. The Planning Commission had the project for its hearings for environmental documentation and its preliminary plan development district today. Jim and the architects spent an awful lot of time in community meetings over the last month to try to explain the project. The hearing today had 3 members of the community stand up and express some minor design changes that they would like to see, and we'll take those into account. But other than that, the project was approved by the 3 voting members of the 4 folks who were there. The others had to abstain. And so it's, we're moving along quickly on that also. And their comments on the architecture were, I'm sorry the architects weren't here today, but I told them to keep working to keep the project moving. They could have heard the nice accolades from the Planning Commission on their design. And that's where we are with the cost estimate at this point. I'd be happy to try to entertain any questions on that part, and then we'll let Jim talk about his stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Smoot. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Oden.
Timeline, based upon your estimation.
The timeline that we are working on right now is to take bids during the month of November and begin construction right before Christmas or shortly thereafter. That's not right, January. We may be doing some demolition between Thanksgiving and Christmas, but that's our original time schedule. We're still looking at 15 months of construction and getting Jim into portions of the building in January and February and other portions in March. We're continuing to work closely on the construction schedule, and that's one of the other issues we need to talk to you about. Since we're going to be building both ends, the top and the bottom of this building, all at the same time while it's occupied, it's getting rather interesting as to how we do that.
Other comments? Mr. Mills.
Mayor. The comment is really, having sat through that meeting last week, or week before last, not quite all of it as several other people did, but I think the process, the input by Jim and his folks, and certainly the leadership of Al has been a productive group, and every meeting has been productive. And we are, as I see it, where we need to be. What our goal was, we are there, and we have the potential, as Al outlined, to do the add-ons because they will be being bid, and if we go further with the TOT increase, which I'm sure the hoteliers are planning on, we can make it a better project than what we see here. But I think when everything was done at the end of the day, I think I got to hand it to Jim because I know he was biting his tongue, but he did make it work. So thank you very much, all of you, Michael included. So.
Okay. Other comments? Gentlemen, thank you. The council appreciates the briefing and the update. Keep this thing moving forward. As Mr. Oden indicated, timeline is an important factor.
I did ask Chris if we gave him another week, if he thought he could save us some more money.
Chris? Mr. Dunn, any comments?
Just wanted to touch on two things. First of all, as Al mentioned, we're...
Is it on?
It should be. It's lights on.
All right.
Are we on, Rick? Voice from on high. With the aggressive schedule that we've got, we sat down this week with representatives of the team to determine how we're going to move forward through the process with the construction and with groups in-house. And one of the things that we as a sales organization need to iron out is how far or how aggressive we are moving forward during the construction period on sales for that period. We have some, obviously some times of the year when we are less busy than others, and it may be beneficial to the construction process to keep those areas blank and not sell into them to any great extent so that we can move through the construction more quickly and
Sure.
Get more accomplished in these big blocks of time. That's one thing that with our last expansion we were able to give them some blocks of time and then they were able to work around us, but that was not nearly the scope of this project. We're trying to get people in and out of the building when we'll be completely surrounded by construction fencing. So you can imagine the opportunity we're going to have. So if we have the opportunity to speed it up, we can refrain from booking in some of these time frames, with the exception we may be able to book some smaller pieces of business that would come in. But we just kind of wanted to run that past you and make sure that that's in keeping with your goals and priorities on that.
Okay.
So we will look for those times then and work with the construction schedule to make sure that we can accommodate that as best as possible. And there may be times when they have to accommodate some of our groups that are already booked as well. The second topic that we needed to bring up, and I'm not sure if is the marketing program. We actually have started attending we're going through a little trade show season right now where we're going to trade shows and starting to actually introduce this to meeting planners. Not in a big way yet. We're just doing some very minor things. We have people in making sales trips and sales calls and meeting with clients individually, and they're showing them these new diagrams. So we've created a real quick flyer to get out there and meet with people and show them what we've got. But we need to begin the more concerted marketing effort, and I believe now you've been supplied with a marketing plan for the pre-opening dollars and the budget. We even have a more detailed budget that's month by month, but I spared you that because it's really big. But what we did need to start with was the current year. There's about $98,000 in expenditures
Mm-hmm.
we need to start making in terms of getting on our theme together, the branding, all of the components that go into the creative effort, so that we can start that and be ready. We've got some trade shows. The first big introduction will be in August.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure that we're prepared for that. So we'll probably be bringing back, I believe, in the next week or so, potentially some type of approval for that first part of that. And then I believe as you noticed in the budget that Al pointed out, there was $1 million in the pre-opening marketing budget, excuse me, and that's been reduced to $500,000 in the first year. And then later in the project, that second $500,000 would come into play because it's essentially about $98,000 between now and the end of this fiscal year, and then $450,000 or $60,000 the following year, and a little bit more the next year, as we move through the process to get open. So if there are any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer those now or next week when we bring it back, or whenever we're bringing it back.
And to clarify, then what you would see next week would be the appropriation for the 97. Then the roughly the 470 would be in the budget for the next fiscal year. And the 97 would come from the budget that's there now for the project.
Okay.
I just, Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Oden.
in terms of the branding that's being done, are you working in conjunction with the CVA, but the one for us will be specifically different?
What we're doing is actually we're looking at working with the same individual that helped the CVA prepare their branding
Dwayne
message.
Knapp.
Dwayne Knapp. And so what we're trying to do is dovetail the message because we're selling the same product. They're selling us, and we don't want to differentiate too much from that. But what we do want to do is very much create our niche, and our niche is Palm Springs. We're not just looking at just the convention center. We're trying to encompass all that's going on in Palm Springs. So we'll use some of the foundation that's already been laid by the CVA, and we can use some of that data, which will help us save some dollars because the work's already been done. So we'll enhance that with our specific product mix and information on that, and then with that create our branding message. And then we'll also be, as we move into that process, we're going to bring in members of the committee, of the community that are so-called stakeholders in this. We'd be bringing in, of course, the hotels, but then the casino, also Jerry Ogburn with the message that they're trying to deliver as well. So we want to bring these things together as much as possible and dovetail the different efforts so that we're layering it and not confusing it.
Other comments or questions? Okay. You all right?
Yes, I just had a, in your situation analysis, I just had a question, clarification. It says that the Palm Springs area remains one of the top 25 destinations. How do we fit into that? Is it Palm Springs, or is it the area? Just how does that work?
I believe that was a reference from our feasibility study. And as far as our clients' recognition, it's the Palm Springs area.
So it's primarily Palm Springs that has the recognition.
They fly into Palm Springs. We have the name recognition. So what we'll be doing is sort of spotlighting that in that, we are Palm Springs. We're 5 minutes from the airport, and this is our village, and this is what it has to offer.
Okay.
Okay. Based on page 8 in your marketing plan, the chart regarding local hotels, this expansion should take you well outside any local competition based at least on size. Is that a correct assumption?
Yes.
What do we know about other area hotels and their plan for expansions and growth? The Hyatt Grand Champions, of course, just went through a fairly extensive remodel, and the Esmeralda went through an expansion. They added a ballroom, not added to the existing, they added another ballroom. So they're two separate, disconnected facilities. They don't have one hall large enough. What do you hear on the horizon?
I think there are some other projects that are out there proposed. Nothing's come to fruition just yet, I don't believe. I think maybe, obviously there's some local things that are going on in our own city that may have some impact, and kind of remains to be seen how that plays out. What we're looking at is our product as it always has been, different from the Down Valley properties, from the standpoint of they tend to deal more with the incentive marketplace, which is sales meetings and almost come in, golf, go to a half day of meetings. We tend to be the more business oriented traveler, corporate business, which is great because they're here to learn about, computer programs and how those function. Those are very lucrative for our downtown. They come in, they use the building the way it's designed to, and using the extreme infrastructure that's already in place that these other buildings don't usually have. The exhibit hall, when you're doing these computer shows, our exhibit hall is very favorable to that. The hotel ballrooms tend to be much less favorable. So we're really poised in a very good position right now, as we have been from the start locally. But with this expansion, we'll be even in a better position. What we're actually seeing now is the new hotels that come online outside of the area that are built with infrastructure that we already have, and their size is the same as ours. This will push us outside of that size range where they won't be able to compete with us on actual size anymore.
Okay.
Long
Okay.
answer to a short question.
That's good by me. Good by me. Anything else? Jim, Al, thank you. It's your copy.
Get them next week. A few more.
Budget amendment? No, you got no direction at all. No. They said okay. So in other words, it's okay. You want to take a snap break? We'll take a quick 10-minute recess, and we'll return. Thank you. We'll call the meeting back to order. We'll return to our study session agenda, and the item 2 is the next calendared event. It is the Downtown Cooperative Marketing Program. And Mr. Reddy, I believe you have a staff report from Mr. Ogburn?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Ogburn is here, director of our downtown office, and this evening's discussion is with regard to our Downtown Cooperative Marketing Program. And
we got
also, John Raymond is here from our Community and Economic Development Department to help discuss the issue. It's about downtown and marketing, and I would turn the microphone over to Mr. Ogburn.
We have a spill on aisle 11.
I was going to say, that's the earliest I've ever had cold water thrown on one of my presentations. That's a record.
Don't get them on these, Ron. Just throw those on the floor over there. We'll give you replacement copies. What is it?
Yeah, threw cold water all over it. Yeah.
You got a report? You got
Thank
another
you.
copy of this report from Mr. Oden that's not so wet?
Thank you.
Make you feel at home. Just the way I like it. All right, so you all right? Mr. Oden had the unfortunate occurrence of spilling a glass of water, but he's all right.
Normally, I survive a spilled glass of water.
Normally. I mean, there are exceptions, but normally you're all right. All right. Mr. Oden, maybe proceed? Yes.
Yes, you're right.
All right, Mr. Ogburn, welcome.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for this opportunity. The past several months, we've been working together with the Main Street Board, with the Uptown Heritage District people, and a cross-section of businesses in the downtown and uptown area, addressing what I think is a very critical problem at this point in our history. As you know, the downtown and the uptown area really are not conventional community or neighborhood shopping centers. They're really regional tourist attractions in many respects. In the demographic and market research we've done in both areas, about 55% of the dollars turned in those two areas come out of the hotel rooms and visitors. So really they do represent something very unusual in this valley, although there is competition growing in that sector. And we've had the rise of the river, and I guess that's a little play on words, in Rancho Mirage. We've had other centers just north of the Gardens. Okay. Anyway, we're literally flooding this presentation this evening.
Jeez, this thing it's beginning to get all wet. Be careful with this thing here.
But the situation is that these areas are really anchored by non-retail anchors. The Agua Caliente Casino is going through a great expansion. The Palm Springs Follies and the Desert Museum is a wonderful established anchor for downtown.
Indeed.
The Convention Center, and we've seen a very exciting plans for that expansion, is an anchor, and the Desert Museum. But again, I emphasize that this isn't just your average retail area. It's very much a tourist-driven center. The problems that we're faced now, and I think there are ones that we've discussed before, is the tourism industry is down. We're having difficulties. In the downtown area, we see the effects of the Desert Fashion Plaza and sort of what that message has been sent out to the consumer. We've had some closures, the closure of Leeds Jewelry. We've had some bad publicity attached to it, although we're very hopeful that's going to come back. But just the message that was sent was not good. We've had a situation where some of our special events in downtown haven't perhaps been as well attended or haven't been as good for business, shall we say, perhaps for the restaurants more so than the retailers. So there's kind of an unrest and a concern that we may be on the verge of losing some of our vitality in downtown, that maybe we've lost some of our vitality. I think the meeting yesterday, there was comments made about there just aren't as many customers down there that there used to be. And you look at advertising efforts that have gone, this is El Paseo, a catalog of El Paseo shops. Very, very impressive. We don't do that. You look at full-page ads in the Desert Sun from El Paseo, the river, and others. We don't do that. And so these people have learned from us a little bit, or for someone, they've learned that arts and entertainment is a great draw, and they've learned to start looking at the tourist economy, not just the resident economy. We started back in November, December with a group, and you have some handouts here. Actually, Main Street funded some work by the Jones Agency. And it really started with a discussion of did we need to take another look at a business improvement district in downtown? And there was some concern about the bad history of that in the past and perhaps being too recent on the tail of that we needed to get people back together. But Main Street and Plaza Investment Company collaborated and hired the Jones Agency to brainstorm with a group, and we had about a 25 member committee that was comprised of 5 retailers, 4 art galleries, 3 restaurants, 5 hospitality industry representatives, and anchors such as the Desert Museum, the Follies, and so on, in very creative workshops. I know Councilwoman Jeannie Reller Spurgeon sat in on one of those sessions. And there was a lot of discussion of how, I guess the word branding is now overused quite a bit, but that's basically what we're doing. How do you brand what we have? And this is what the consensus came up with is the first page, or the exhibit to the left on the wall, was what people feel is the identity of downtown, and also of the Heritage District. And the key words, I mean, every word in this was virtually wordsmithed through, but Palm Canyon Drive, and that is what people recognize. It's our answer to Rodeo Drive or Champs-Élysées or to whatever, but that's what people in very simple terms focus upon. But also the word share the legend. You know, we're the only downtown that really has any history in the desert, and in fact, one of the few in Southern California. And then the word shop, dine, and play in the village of Palm Springs. Every one of those words was debated, tweaked, and so on individually, as Jeannie witnessed. That was done by group. And in that group, there was a gentleman, John Greenberger. And you may know John a little bit better, that he is the husband of Mary Jardine. And they were representing the Follies. He's a marketing executive from New York, has his own company, and a very bright man and very talented man, and had a lot of good ideas, and got interested in the project. He thought we were on the right track, but thought we needed to be taken one step further. So he took what we had done and created this. It says, Palm Canyon Drive, share the legend. And just in a few minutes over the phone, he said, what is the essence here? And I said, well, I think we need to show that Palm Canyon Drive, the palms, the historic aspect of it, but also that it's unique and it's a day and a night destination. So what you see is the night sky transitioning into the sun, and share the legend. Now, what has happened is that I've gone around and taken that out and said, you know, we don't have an ability to do cooperative advertising. We don't have a business improvement district like El Paseo does. We don't tax the property owners. We don't tax the businesses. But I said, how would you like to be a shareholder in this program by using this? And Mr. Greenberger has given us the rights to use this at no cost. This is his gift, if you will, to Main Street and to the Uptown District. And I began going down the street and saying, would you brand your advertising, those people that do advertising, brand your advertising with this? And it was unanimous, yes. I mean, very excited. They could see where it was going. And to date, I can tell you the shareholders from the private sector that have said that give us this on disc, give us to our art agency, and we'll use it, include the Palm Springs Follies, La Mariposa, Aristocats, and Mosaic, Kaiser Grill, Palm Springs Chop House and Deck, Crystal Fantasy, Dwight Pullen Gallery in Uptown, Las Casuelas Terraza, Atlas, Village Pub, and Huzo Gallery. And that's about a week's worth of work. I mean, just incidentally talking to people. Everybody's excited about it. They think this is what really defines Palm Springs, and it has the color and the form, if you will, to excite people. We then So I took this out to the private sector. We have a strong feeling for it. Some of the things you'll see in the additional of the packet, this is another piece that John Greenberger put together as an idea for an airport display, or it could be for a web page or any number of applications. But the idea is this Share the Legend logo can be adapted to a lot of uses. We've worked with the Follies. This is a fact sheet that we'll be taking when we try to attract new business, telling what the Follies does financially or economically in the community. But again, they've incorporated this into their piece. We did one with the Desert Museum, and they're working with us on in cooperation on this program, so their advertising will incorporate the Share the Legend. The Spa Resort and Casino, we made a presentation to the Tribal Council, and they were quite intrigued by it, quite excited, and they're considering it. So that is another one. The Convention Center, you've already heard mention made that we're coordinating with them. I am working with CVA Mike Fife in their efforts. He attended one of our presentations, was quite taken by it, thought it was in the right direction, and has asked me to work with their group in the branding exercise for the Valley hospitality industry. So I think there's a lot of cross currents of cooperation going on here. The thing that we did, and this is the shareholders piece right here, the Jones Agency put together a budget and said, you know, you really, to do this right, to be competitive, you need to spend between $200,000 and $300,000. This is the lower limit of their proposal or their recommendation to us. That there would be about a 40,000 item in print media, the Desert Sun being the primary one. And I want to emphasize that our objective here is not to duplicate what tourism does. The tourism and the other people that advertise go outside. They go to LA, they go to San Diego, they go to England, they go to wherever it is, they advertise and promote, and downtown Palm Springs certainly is a beneficiary of that. But our problem, our shortage right now is how do we get a higher percentage of those people that are coming to the Valley already to come to downtown? So our target is the desert community, and to get a higher probability of them coming to this end of the Valley. So this would be in conjunction with and cooperation with tourism, but would certainly be targeted more locally. The print media, the radio and the Valley television, special events, drawing from people that are coming here to the Bob Hope Classic, for example, having them come to downtown during that trip. Billboard and an airport display. We own the airport, and having airport intercept display is very important. And when you look at our very preliminary list of shareholders, that's a pretty good start. People are not giving money to Main Street or the Chamber or anybody else and turning over part of their advertising program. They're doing the advertising they're going to do anyway, but they're targeting it within a theme. But that doesn't really help the small business person. And the problem we have in downtown, as you may know, is we have a lot of small retail businesses that do not advertise. They don't know the value of it. They're a little bit frightened right now because of the downturn in the economy. They see problems like the Desert Fashion Plaza and so on. So there's a lot of unrest, and how do we get more people on the street? When we initially started this discussion, it was like, how do we get people involved in cooperative advertising to put their dollars in to make it work? Basically, the problem is that, as I said, we have some small retailers that either feel they can't afford it or just honestly can't. And so really what we're proposing here is, and when JR and I talked about it, I said, you know, I think that if there could be a stimulus, if you could, from the economic development aspect of the city saying, let's make an investment for 1 year to prime the pump and get this started. We're not going to pay somebody to do their advertising for them, but give them a stimulus. Let's take it a year, and so they can see, if it's done right, what the value of advertising is on their bottom line. So really what the bottom line, if you will, of the presentation this evening is to look at, there's an economic development marketing fund that John Raymond and his staff administer, in which there's currently a $250,000 account balance in it. And what I'm proposing, what I'm asking you to consider to give me direction is to make a one-time investment in the economic engine of Palm Springs that needs some help right now. What I did is put together kind of a laundry list of ways that within the parameters of this overall program that I think economic development-wise, this council can be very helpful in stimulating downtown and get a better business performance over the next year. We know that we're in a time that over the next 2 to 3 years before the Desert Fashion Plaza comes back, when the casino is completed and the convention center are under expansion, it's going to be kind of a in-between time, and it's going to be a little unsettling. So going down the page, I think one of the first things that we look at is a weekly full-page color ad in the Desert Sun for 30 weeks. That takes us through the season. And that's what's on the board there. You can see the Share the Legend, the full-page ad block out, and there's one right next to it for El Paseo. That's what we're doing, and that's what we're not doing. What I'm proposing is there's several line items here, of which you could direct us to do none of these or some of these, or if we're lucky, all of them. The first thing would be a small business cost reduction incentive. We know in trying to get these started that the small people, the 4 and 5 employee businesses in downtown, the maximum they're going to spend is about $100 a week in doing advertising. We know that it's to get something in the Desert Sun as part of that ad's going to run $150 to $175. So we're saying that in this reduction incentive, the $24,000 would offset the cost to get the overall page set up. The private sector, the small businesses, would pay $30,000 over the years, which would exceed what the city would put in, but it would get the program started so they could see it. And I'm not saying this is an ongoing program, it's a one-year shot in the arm. Calendar of special events. The city has a lot of events downtown. $18,000 for the year. You could advertise each of those events and have an ongoing calendar, which again keeps it in front of people. The Friday weekend section, an additional calendar of events is $11,400. An online component is $6,600. All of those add up to what I call a basic incentive package for the print media of $60,000. The Valley Sports Events package, the Bob Hope Classic, et cetera, $12,000. Again, that's an audience that's here that we could attract a larger segment. A visitor's guide option, $4,000. So that would add to $76,000. That would be the print media that would get this whole thing going. Airport displays, production costs about $1,200. I talked to Al Smoot and to Frank Jones, and basically they could make 2 or 3 spaces available at no cost through the year. That would have about a $9,600 value if they rented them out. But if we could provide the production work and the graphics, they can put us in the airport. I think it's very important as an intercept as people land to tell them about downtown. Touchscreen programs, we've been working with touchscreen centers. That would be about 32 locations throughout the Valley and Southern California. It's a kiosk program with a film on it that would, when you touch the key, it would show a film of downtown Palm Springs. It wouldn't focus on any one business, but just show the many attractions that we have in downtown and in the Heritage District. And there are about 30 locations, including across the Valley. Our own Visitor Information Center has one. The Palm Desert Visitor Information Center has one. The Down Valley shopping centers have them, so they would get information about our historic district as they're here in the Valley. And there are also locations in Los Angeles, San Diego, and Orange County. So we see that these are 3 very valuable things that could be done. The total request, if you would direct us to go for the total, would be $85,600, which would be from a fund that's already here. The money's established. It's in this year's budget. It was a result of the Burnett land sale. It does represent an investment in economic development. We think it's critical. I really do, and I think it's time that we make a signal to the small business community in downtown that, you know, you're going to have to get into a program, and we'll help you get into a program for the first year, but that would also give us a year to work on a permanent way to get more people into it. We're really struggling because you look at what El Paseo does and other centers in the valley, and they, like I say, they've recognized that, you know, everybody wants to be a village now. And we're the only real one, but everybody wants to be a village, and everybody wants to be arts and entertainment. That's what the river is. And they go a long way to get their message out, and they have a very simple one. That's basically it. I'm sure I missed a lot. It seemed like I was going to take a lot longer, but I'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Jerry. Council, questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Oden.
Well, you know, initially I heard this concept from Eric Meeks, and we talked about it on several occasions, and I thought that the idea was very good. My concern was this. First of all, I personally considered making a more significant investment because these are the people who make an investment in our community. Their lives, in a very real sense, are on the line. But I was looking at something, I'm certainly not opposed to this, but I was looking at something a little different, where perhaps we would do the initial, and they would show us how the program would be sustained, let's say, for 3 years.
And we can do that. I mean, that's...
I guess the challenge that you face in doing that is the educational process for those who don't understand or appreciate the value for smaller businesses.
Right.
So the 1 year I think is a good option. On the other hand, I think I'd prefer to see a longer term investment if we're going to do something like this.
And I certainly appreciate that. My thought, one thing is I guess I would a little bit more to, we want to get them to spend their money first and not to be reliant on it. It's almost like it's a 1 year, yeah, we should be doing this for 2 and 3 years, but my concern is that they get reliant on it and say, well, the city's going to do this. I think that could be a problem. What I'd like to do, the shareholders program, I think, gave us a start. Now I need for each of these people to say, what is your budget? What are you spending in using this image? In what degree will you participate in this without having any kind of assistance at all? So that we can develop the comprehensive program and get it going.
Well, I'm fine with your recommendation. I would just suggest perhaps also looking at something, and perhaps definitely not as frequently, but Desert Post Weekly, and perhaps the Desert Woman. Is that it? Yes, as well, because those are, I think, widely read publications as well. On the touchscreen centers, the kiosks, what's on that presentation currently?
We have nothing on downtown.
Well, so you're just referring to the ones that they do in the county?
This is a whole separate operation. This is Touchscreen Centers. It's a private enterprise, and they're basically targeting shopping destinations. We will have one in the Visitor Information Center here, but it's not related to job creation or anything like that. It's
so this is something we would develop specifically for our venue.
Yes, there's a company that does this, and as I say, Kaiser Grill, for example, is on their system. And there are a couple of other downtown businesses, but it's primarily high-end, very specialized retail kind
But
of
this is
presentation.
something that they buy into separately.
No, well, they can, but the idea here is there's nobody that says, what's downtown all about? I mean, Kaiser Grill is involved in the program, for example, and I suspect others will get involved. I know Livrari's has been negotiating with them to get in, but nobody says this is the village. This talks about Palm Springs.
So there would be a generalized video that
Yes.
would run approximately how long?
45 seconds. I think.
45 seconds.
Yeah.
And it just talks about the village.
The village, and it's a movie. It actually shows the village.
All right.
Then you can hit the hot links and go to restaurants. Then you can go to attractions. Then you can go to retail. Yeah.
Okay. I think it's an excellent idea. I think its time has come. This is something that I think that we need to do. The joint marketing concept is really what's working, and it is separate from what everyone else is doing. It is specifically marketing the section of our city that truly works for us.
Yeah. And I think the image is, this is the Heritage District. Each little individual business can't do that. They can say, this is my shop, but who says this is what the district is all about? You know, the Follies can work on their image, but they can't really talk about the whole street. And there's a big story to tell. People don't know it. There are new people coming in town, and they go to the river or someplace else, and it's like they didn't know what Palm Springs was here anymore. It's changing. Competition's here.
Well, we'll have to share the legend.
That's right.
So Jerry,
Yes.
there's not a maximum number of people. Any business could be
Oh,
involved.
sure, absolutely. Yeah, we
All
hope,
the businesses
I
can be
hope they
involved.
all could be in there. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, my feeling is if you've got a healthy downtown, you've got a healthy city.
Mhm.
And that's our face. And we need to do this. We're well past having done this.
Right.
So you've got my support.
Great. Good.
Mr. Mills.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think it's an excellent program. I think there's obviously a lot of effort, and I'm thinking I've been sitting here after reading your breakdown to see if there's any other markets that you may have missed, but I mean, I think you have really hit it all. I think there's obviously, as I mentioned, an enormous effort in it, but I do agree with your thought that it's a partnership deal, and the Palm Springs City is certainly willing to step up to the line here initially to get it started, but it really is going to take the downtown to make it work, not the
Right.
city.
Right.
And so I'm as enthusiastic as everyone else is, I think, about it.
Good, good. Appreciate that.
A couple of obvious comments on anything to do with advertising and marketing. If you don't do it long enough, you don't get a groove, you don't get it set, they don't see the image. So
Right.
you got to have some sort of commitment from all partners, city included, about doing this over time. If you do it once or twice or even 1 year, you didn't get anywhere,
Right.
okay? So I need to see some expression of some long commitment. Two, if you do it so long the same way, they stop seeing it because it's the same thing and it
Right.
becomes old hat. So you got to keep it fresh. So how you and your team plan on balancing those two kind of parameters, which are, by no means new or innovative statements. It's just the nature of
Right.
this thing we call marketing. The worst thing you do is not do it long enough to where no one recognizes it, or the jingle is not catchy enough to where they recognize it. I mean, it becomes the same stuff you hear on the radio to where you turn it off. We all hear the same jingle year after year after year, no matter what business is trying to get your attention, and you stop hearing it because you've heard it so often. So I'm just trying to figure out where do you take this? I look at this from the standpoint that what I'd like to see is the city's commitment to sort of build the framework. Okay, we commit to doing something that says, okay, here's the frame, come hang your ad, your commitment on this, you know, almost like your ad here for the full page.
Right.
We'll buy the page, and then you buy a spot in it.
Right.
And then ongoingly, with regards to the basis of sort of plan and goal and growth, it'd be nice if, in fact, you start getting so successful at this campaign that, you know, it's 2 pages.
Right.
And then maybe it's not 2 pages, maybe it's, you know, 4. And then maybe it's not 4, maybe it's an insert that becomes sort of the Palm Springs insert. I know that from special events, it doesn't matter who you talk to, they would love to advertise more, but they can't afford the full cost and impact of ads. But if they had the framework and some assistance, then they would obviously advertise with whatever revenues they've got, resources, so they can get more exposure. And there's a lot of events that happen in town.
Right.
I mean, Mr. Oden talked about the one earlier in his comments about the dance. I mean, I don't even hear about it till it's already gone.
Right.
You know, you got the A4 landing on Saturday, which to most people is like, well, what's an A4? But to those interested in military aircraft, it's a significant occurrence. And, you know, what kind of partnership have we got? Now, I know this is a focus, if you will, for downtown, but there's no reason why your partners couldn't join you, because if they come to the museum, they'll go downtown for dinner. They come to the Desert Museum, they'll stay for some shopping. So the partnership is sort of, you know, a symbiotic relationship. So I appreciate the initiative from Main Street, I assume this came from?
Main Street and the Up-Down Heritage District. Both.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Because I think we do need it. I would like to see this sort of like be one of many steps in sort of a growth and commitment. There were discussions in the meeting you had referred to and Mr. Reddy had hosted yesterday. There's certain aspects of the downtown that I think the merchants can join, low cost, you know, even hosing down their own sidewalks in the morning. I mean, it's a simple concept, but as opposed to calling us saying the sidewalk doesn't look good, they could hose down a sidewalk. They could plant some flowers. There are certain merchants that put a little extra effort, nominal, but it pays off visually for the tourist. So whatever we can do to kind of get them excited to join us in more than just this campaign here.
Right.
And you are right about advertising, and it's not just downtown, it's any business. There's an attitude that you buy a business license and you sign a lease and you get a desk and you put a phone on it and you wait for business to come.
Right.
And they forget the idea of promoting your business. Some join, you know, network organizations, join the chamber and go to breakfast, but it's an aggressive attack that brings you success. And what we've got to do is get very aggressive in selling Palm Springs, and specifically in this case, the downtown and the uptown. Because there's a lot to offer, but I don't think people actually understand that or see it. So this could be a great opportunity for us.
It's always a pleasure to be part of a very creative process, but this is very unusual because usually what you do is you set up a district, you amass $200,000 or $300,000, you hire an ad agency, a consultant, you come up with the image, and then you go out and place it. What we've done, and Rick Service, who's a lot quicker than I am, I know, he's looked at it and he says, timeshare for advertising, good idea. And that's what we've done. We've created a frame, as you said. Now, you put your image in there, and the other thing that's kind of exciting about it is you can either have a campaign that sort of explodes on people, or you can sort of filter it out. And John Greenberger, who's a very qualified marketing professional, says, it's a lot better if they just start to see occasionally, and that starts building, and more people are starting to use it. Share the legend. Palm, what's that all about? And so already I know that there are people, Diane Matzner has Key Magazine doing her ads with this as we sit here. You're going to start to see it appear, and it's the kind of the curiosity factor. What's this all about? And I think that has a real strong mystique. And he says, even if you had the money to do a grand explosion campaign, you're probably better off just filtering it out and sort of building. So that's what we want to do. You'll see some of this start to come on this summer and building for next season. So,
when do the bumper stickers come out?
Oh.
And I have to say it because years ago when we had the old P.S. I Love You bumper sticker and the little sun with the sunglasses on it, I mean, you saw them everywhere. Well, and as much as you saw it everywhere, so did everybody else see it everywhere. And when you left town or went down Valley or went to points in Southern California, you'd see this image that just said Palm Springs. And the trick is to see or to say or to hear two words, and that's Palm Springs. And if you got to pay for it, agreeably, that's one method. But if you can just get it out there, someone walking through a parking lot looking for his car sees your bumper sticker, says, "Hey, Palm Springs," and then says, "You know what, honey? Maybe next weekend we'll go to Palm Springs." I mean, and people will put it on. Those who support the city will put on a nice, not a tacky, but a nice bumper sticker. So
we've talked about that. Actually, this image would be a great logo on a golf shirt.
Yeah.
And if you had, say, a special event staff or even employees in the store have this, and we looked at it as kind of the good housekeeping seal of approval. Those people that are participating as shareholders in this program get to put one of these up at their front door or at the cash register. What's that all about? You know, so the image is strong. It has a lot of possibilities, and I think you'll see people doing a lot of things with it.
Maybe you got a sign somewhere downtown, or signs
Yeah.
somewhere downtown.
Well, you can do it on banners,
Banners.
you know,
So
the whole thing. So
you got instruments down there.
Yeah.
What's the procedure at this point? You got an 85.6 request. This is the recommendations out of the economic development share.
Mr. Mayor, that, I would just note to council, and JR, correct me if I'm wrong, this is from the Economic Development Fund that council had set aside. There was originally 465.
Yeah, 465.
As part of the budget, when council had indicated that they would fund the film festival, the additional 200,000 at a study session a couple months ago. That is where we'd indicated that we would take that 200,000 from. So there's about a little over 200,000 left. We would go to that same fund for this 85,000.
Did we actually commit to the 200,000? We didn't commit to it. We discussed it, but we didn't commit
We
to it.
discussed it.
Okay, and you have not committed to that. All right.
If council did ultimately approve that, that's where the funding would come from.
Okay.
Or that's where we would recommend it, sir.
Well, at this point, we can bring this forward, and council's all right with that?
Yes.
Okay, very good, thank you. Gentlemen, Main Street, Uptown?
I would only note that even the piece that EDC did, you'll note up here, it says share in the legend.
There you
So
go.
we're covering all our bases. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir?
just as a interesting note, we just closed on that land sale today with Burnett on the 465. So the money, we committed the money last year in anticipation of that, and we got the close on that today.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Apparently, there's someone from the downtown in our audience, I'm not sure. Might be the president of Main Street.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Got a meeting tomorrow at 7:30? Yes, sir. Okay. We've got our last item on the study session, which is future study session docket. And you have, again, the list that was handed out. Mr. Reddy?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of council, what I would like to note at the top of your, under scheduled topics, you see a budget update on the 14th and the 28th. I would like to reserve, if I could, budget updates for those two meetings. There may also be required a workshop, an additional meeting on the budget. Would like to have the actual budget to you the first or second meeting for approval in June. That is our target, so we would need the May dates for, in essence, budget updates. Also, at the bottom, the SMG contract renewal, I would like to bring that forward also on the 28th meeting for a study session. I think we'll be able to bring council from our council subcommittee and staff's work a idea of where those negotiations are, and for you to take a look at a draft of what the proposal would be. And one other change, what's not on your agenda, what we would like to add on is the citizens survey from the National Citizen Survey. Council had appropriated the dollars for us to do. It has arrived back. We are just about ready to let council have that. I believe we'll have it in our hands very, very shortly. A couple of weeks we'll be able to hand out to council, and then we would like council to schedule this so we can let the public know, and we would like to add that to the list.
Okay. Council? Got some items here. We can entertain any new ones, of course. I had mentioned in my comments, I'd like to see the Quimby Act brought forward. And again, the reason I want to expedite it is we're building so many properties now that every house that gets permitted without any Quimby Act fees attached to it is money lost for enhancement of parks and recreation. I'd like to get at least the council aware of it. If they want to take action, again, I ask that there be an urgency ordinance accompanying that so that the council can put an immediate action behind it. If not, then that's fine, but I think it's an important opportunity for revenue to enhance our parks and rec. So I'd like to see that brought forward as soon as possible. And I don't know if you want to bring it through a study session or otherwise, but I entertain a sense of urgency in my tone on this one.
If
which is rare
I
for me.
could, actually, on the budget update on the 14th, the next study session, I believe we'd be ready to discuss it then, because we do have several development fee discussions at that point, or as well. We'll be able to at least open discussion, and we'd be able to have information on the Quimby Act at that time.
Mr. Alshire, can I ask you, in the world of urgency ordinances, what's the procedure time-wise? Take action at first meeting, second reading's what, 20, 24, 28, 14 days?
No, urgency ordinance, you act on immediately, read it. It happens all that meeting.
Okay.
Would you rather have that at a regular scheduled meeting, Mayor?
Again, I may have more greater sense of urgency than the council's aware of, but I think they should be clearly aware of an opportunity for revenue that we have not investigated and is a viable way to deal with at least Parks and Recreation. And it requires action, and it requires it to be assessed against dwelling units, and it requires a long study, but I'm not suggesting we wait until the study's over, because you're missing months of revenue generation. So I'd ask it to be brought forward as soon as possible for action. If the council doesn't want to entertain it, then it's all done and it's said in one meeting. But it's an excellent opportunity for revenue, and that's what we're seeking right now.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mills?
I would also agree that is a very important issue.
Thank you, sir.
And I don't know anything about it,
Right?
so if it's in my packet Friday, I can read about it.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that reasonable or not reasonable? Okay,
Pay to play, yeah.
there you go.
And whatever documents that the city attorney might have.
The leaf blowers, you know, it's so old I've forgotten what I wanted to talk about on that one. So I thought I'd said before, why don't we just take that off? You thought I was kidding? I'm not kidding. Let's take it off.
That may be back before you because of air quality issues, so it may be mandated, but I can't address that right now.
Well, I brought it up when we were
Yeah.
talking about PM10.
Yep, air
That's-
quality.
That's,
It is a factor, Jeannie. Okay. Multi-species habitat conservation program, it's rapidly coming to some sort of a close. CVAG's pushing for it. I think the council should be briefed on our status. We're not even in the plan yet. They don't have anything written on a chapter yet. And I think you should be aware of our status and what action you want to give staff and our representative at CVAG to deal with this issue.
it's been you, isn't it?
So I put a highlight and importance on multi-species habitat. And on the release and removal of resale restrictions on affordable housing, this is blocking the sale of certain properties. And I just need to have it addressed. I think I'm the one that asked for this. This has to be addressed. The council doesn't want to change the restrictions. It just puts some limitations and some obstacles in the sale of certain properties in our community. So we've got to get that cleaned up. And I think the council has to be aware of it to give direction to staff to take action eventually. Aside from that, I turn to the council for other additional recommendations.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Oden.
I think the Budget Task Force should probably report out on a regular basis before they do a final report. So whether that's once a month or twice a month, I don't know, and I'd be comfortable with their recommendation, but I'd hate to wait until the last minute to have this big comprehensive report. We want to hear what's going on.
Who's the chairman of that?
John Stiles.
John
Mr.
Stiles.
That's
Stiles.
right, that's right. Could he maybe after a meeting write something and put it in our staff report?
Sure. I'm not sure where they will be in far as our budget timeline, but I think probably by the 28th, they could be part of our study session. They certainly could give an
Okay.
update then,
Okay.
if you feel that's adequate time.
Yeah, that would be fine.
I might suggest, if Mr. Jordan, that they are aware of the fact that we expect them here on the 28th. So whatever they're working on should be at some point where they can report, as opposed to we're just ongoing studies. Let them realize that they've got 28 days to give us a status. Is that what you're looking for, a status?
No. I don't think they're going to have a whole lot of information by then because they're still going through reports and things from what I understand. So as long as they're just giving us some updates on what's going on with the task force.
Yeah, I think they'll have at least, they're working on a preliminary, I believe, a preliminary recommendation, at least so far as to help council with the
Current.
draft of our current budget, yes.
Okay. So I'm sure they'll bring us something at that date. I'm really, because they're going to continue beyond that date, and that's really what I'm looking at. And I think it should be public because the community is looking forward to hearing what they have to say. Yeah, but yeah, I know that their meetings are aired, but more people will probably focus on the council report than the actual budget task force meeting themselves. Now, I know we have some people who have been discussing the medical marijuana issue, and that's something that Dana had requested.
Mr. Roden, if I could comment, the county prosecutor is, I believe, and the chief had informed me that the county prosecutor is going to make some sort of policy decision on that. And what I would like to do is the chief, by memorandum, to give council an update, and then after you have that update, it would be helpful when we have this discussion. So I suspect that it would be at least a June timeframe before we'd have this discussion.
Okay. All right.
Again, there may be issues that are not on this that you want brought forward for discussion.
What is the special events ordinance?
That's Jeannie and me. It's our subcommittee.
We had worked on ordinance trying to deal with all the various activities where you are requested to grant fee waivers or provide
Sanctioning,
sponsoring, providing economic assistance, both actual dollars and in-kind services. So the ordinance tries to categorize all of the various types of events that are held and then create criteria based upon when you would provide what type of assistance. It's something that there's actually been a draft of the ordinance sitting around for some period of time, but there's been a need to really come forward and explain how it's set up to the council so that the council is comfortable with the proposal.
That's prior to reading it.
Yeah.
I'm just asking a question.
David, these future study session dates, there's nothing scheduled for those at this time?
On the 14th and 28th, we are asking for the
Yes.
budget update.
Right, I see that.
So I do need
Because we
additional.
need to be realistic in what we put on here.
Yes, and then on the 28th, the SMG contract renewal. So there is room certainly on the 14th for another subject. We have the citizen survey. Now you may want to have a third item on both nights. And again, the Quimby Act issue, now that, of course, we could just have that discussion right at an actual council meeting, because council may want to take action.
Okay, why don't we do that?
Do then that, if the council's going to take action, we have to prepare the action materials for that meeting then.
Okay.
Will we have information prior to that? And I guess my concern is when does this start? And because we have quite a few projects that we've already approved, and they didn't know this information. And certainly if we start tacking on things at this point, I'm not sure how that feels to people who have already made an investment and we've already given them a commitment. So the urgency is to address the people who are already in line.
The choice that you would have in adopting the ordinance is to either pick a date that is anybody that's got an application in, or pick an issuance of building permit. I mean,
Entitlement.
there's a whole series of dates you could pick.
Okay, well.
And so you could certainly say anybody that's got the application in, it doesn't apply, or you could say it applies up until the point in time that you get your building permit.
Well, then that's why I'm asking about the urgency, because if otherwise it can just be scheduled. If it's urgent, then it would seem to me it would be addressing those people who have already applied. And
That doesn't feel good.
no.
That's a relatively easy thing to fix in the ordinance. The reason I'm asking the question is actually drafting the ordinance and how we would calculate the fee and so forth. There's a little effort involved in that. So if there are major questions about whether you're going to do this, it probably makes sense to have a study session conversation, then come back quickly with the ordinance. If, on the other hand, you're pretty comfortable that as soon as you see it, you'll be able to act on it, then we just, we need a few weeks to be able to put an ordinance together with a fee proposal.
I'm certainly more than willing to hear the information. Is it scheduled for the 28th?
Well, actually, the clerk has told me it couldn't be, actually, it would be on the 21st council agenda. It couldn't make it on for the 7th, so we could have it on the study session for the 14th, and then come back on the 21st if council wanted an ordinance.
Okay.
All right.
So for the 14th, then, we'd schedule the budget and the Quimby. And the citizen survey as well?
Sure.
Or is...
Depends
Yeah,
on how the
that's
budget
good.
goes.
Okay.
It really depends on what your anticipation is on the budget discussion.
Well, it will be a long, healthy discussion, so maybe 2 will be...
I wouldn't
two.
put too much
Yeah.
on there.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'll
then
give
we'll-
you, I'll give you notice that I won't be here for the 25th of June. So strike the 25th from my attendance. I won't be here.
Okay. Okay, then on the 14th, we have the budget, which will be a good, long discussion, and the Quimby. All
Okay.
right, 2 items. And then on the 28th, again, the budget task force, I'm sorry, it will be the budget discussion. We will also invite the budget task force for their report,
Okay?
and the SMG contract renewal.
Okay. Good. You got a toothache?
No. My daughter's graduation is on the 29th, and so I may have to leave because I haven't been able to schedule anything early enough on the 29th to get there in time, so I may have to miss the 28th. And I don't want to, but
Don't miss your daughter. That's far more important. So we got June 11th now we're working on. The proclamation process, I want to make sure that when we schedule that Dana's here, because that was important to her.
city insurance
Yeah, the remainder of the stuff on here, I don't have any sense of urgency or priority to them. If you want to put them on there, fine. And I appreciate this opportunity to say, these are things that are important to me, bring them forward. The rest, it's based on what the staff's demands are and what the availability of schedule.
I agree.
I don't want to program every agenda unless your council wants to go item by item, but
No.
if you got room, bring it in. If it's urgent, Doug's got something he's got to bring forward on general plan, bring it forward. Chief's got something from fire, bring it forward. But I'm comfortable in getting at least the priorities that we talked about tonight in place, and we'll leave it at that.
Look at that. I waited 1.5 years for the leaf blowers, and look how fast we got rid of that.
and
Amazing.
it'll be back again.
Yeah, they'll be back. It's a cycle. Right behind will be the palm tree trimming, so don't worry, they'll all be there.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Very good. It is now 9:19. Seeing no business before the council, we will stand adjourned. Thank you and good night.